All right. Let's be professional.
All right.
Okay. Let's be professional. Let's be professional. Don't buy Monero. Governments have made it very clear, especially in the EU, Canada, that you do not need untraceable money. You need to make sure that all of your cryptocurrency transactions are traced. You don't need Monero. You should never buy it and never use it because it's bad. That's what they say to you. But really, if we're being professional, look, as a professional trader, I cannot. At this point, you're in the middle of a yeet, but we're going to take this moment. Actually, I had a live stream. What was it, back in May of last year when we had the first yeet? I thought it was actually too late to buy it back. By the way, this is a question I asked on Twitter. What do you think is going to hit first, silver or Monero? So that's what I think is actually going to be a very interesting race. Someone on my Bitcoin chat has asked me, what do you think is going to hit first, Monero 1,000 or Bitcoin 150,000? I think that's rather optimistic of them. They're probably better off trying to cite Bitcoin getting back to 100,000. We'll talk about Bitcoin, by the way. By the way, this is not just going to be about celebration. I'm going to take that moment to celebrate because I've been talking about Monero for almost 2 or 3 years now. I've tried so hard to get people to understand the privacy use case of internet money. I'm going to look at silver. Is very important to look at, not just to talk about it going up too, but also to understand what the price action looked like before all of this happened. So, not even going to do an intro because this is a midweek stream. I usually do streams on Friday at 4 p.m., but I've actually realized that there's nothing you can really do at Friday at 4 p.m. And so I think I might get encouraged to do Wednesday streams because at least then on Thursday we can take positions that we talk about here on the stream because that's what I like to do that. I really like to do that because I have people come on and they give me ideas. I look at them and we see if they're good. So let's make sure that, I'm not just talking. Let's see, make sure that everything's good technically. Let's see, hold on. Yep. We'll look at symbols in a little bit. We'll look at stocks. Today's going to be mostly a crypto focused day, obviously. We'll do it. Definitely going to look at Litecoin. Litecoin is going to be one of the focal points because if you saw my Twitter, TradingView, the question is, what's next? Monero is on up there. But actually, what I wanted to bring up here was technically on you can't trade. You technically legally can't trade cryptocurrency in China, but a former Chinese exchange, HTX, which used to be Huobi, it already hit over 1,100. I had, as the data point, a friend of mine said that he was looking to try to buy some Monero yesterday on maybe a decentralized exchange, or maybe it was a centralized exchange. By the way, if you do want to, and you're here in the United States, Kraken, Kraken, they are the real cryptocurrency exchange. Coinbase has never listed Monero, nor will it ever list it. Never, ever use Coinbase, not even once. They suck. But this has already hit 1,000 because of supply shock. That supply shock thing that the Bitcoin people said that was going to happen for them? Well, Monero got it instead. Sorry. I'm not sorry. I think that with the exception of one good friend that I have in the Bitcoin space, they're all pricks. And except then one friend that I know, and I love him and I wish him all the success in the world. They've all been pretty much pricks, and I've been trying my hardest to say that the use case of online internet money has been taken over by Monero. That was one of my primary theses back in 2023, or 2024 is when I really started. But 2023, if I go back in my posting history, that's where I started kind of realizing what was going to happen. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I started realizing that a lot of these big hackers of Bitcoin over the years, from like Bitfinex, and what was the more recent one? There was one from the Bitfinex hackers, and then I think I'm going all the way to the Silk Road. These people that had stolen a bunch of Bitcoin had some poor OPSEC, and that they had at some point made a transaction that was traceable. And after years and years, they got caught, imprisoned, and had to surrender all those billions of dollars in Bitcoin to the government. And I noticed that, and I said to myself, everyone else is probably noticing this too. There is a use case for what cryptocurrency, at least I thought, was going to be when I got into it back in 2011, anonymous online payments and money. And Bitcoin isn't that. Bitcoin is entirely traceable, and they see that as a feature, not as a bug, because being traceable means that corporations can buy it and prove they have it, even though some don't, and say they bought it, but who knows if they did or not. And it lends itself well to corporate Ponzi schemes, which are not doing too well right now. But Monero has been delisted. I mean, the delisting of Monero was actually a moment within my thesis that I developed. So I began, accumulating back in 2023 when I started realizing that there's going to be this use case that was not being fulfilled by Bitcoin with privacy and online transactions. Also, on the dark web, I started noticing, for research purposes only, that all of the darknet websites were either Bitcoin and Monero, or they were, in some cases, exclusively Monero. That is a big deal. A lot of other online marketplaces, their largest, and this is before the pump. This is something that I saw before the pump. Their largest transaction volume was in Monero. Their largest search volume was in Monero. It was very clear that the use case, which has been abandoned by Bitcoin in favor of number go up of online currency, had shifted into Monero. And so that's a big deal. And honestly, I did not want this to happen. I'm going to be honest. I don't want this price to be this high, because you can already see that the transaction volume of Monero has gone down. Why? Because when people perceive that number go up is going to happen, they don't want to spend it. I say that, but I take that back. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, well, let me paste it. Well, on a downward trend up until now, when I imagine people are starting to actually move it around a good bit. A lot of arbitrage is having to happen because of those supply shocks on smaller exchanges. So, but anyway, going back to this little bar right here, this bar on February the 5th, 2024 was when Binance delisted Monero. And I got to say, I woke up that morning and I saw that Monero, something that I was extremely confident in and taking a position in, was down 30%. No investor wants to see that. But I at first I thought that Monero's security had been broken. Someone had broken the code. Someone had gone in and figured out how to, unobfuscate, the transactions, had broken it. But then when I read about it, it's like, oh, Binance delisted it. And so the theme at the time was, oh, well, people are not going to be able to speculate on it. They're not going to be able to buy it. They're not going to be able to leverage trade it. Oh, no, that means that it won't go up anymore. That was the theme. But I took it a different way. I said, oh, they delisted it because it was not traceable. And regulation, especially in Europe, was demanding that all cryptocurrency be traceable. So Monero was working as intended. Hold. And then, of course, last year, that was when it got down to the 100s, and it was kind of stagnant. But, the other thing that I kind of noticed was in the event where we actually have a crypto bear market like we did back in 2022. This is XMR BTC. from the all-time high of the time of Bitcoin in November until the bottom in January of 2023, Monero outperformed Bitcoin by 130%. Why? Because it held its value. So it was a hedge against a crypto winter as well. At least it had been in the past. It's another bull case for it. So if we go through the history a little bit more to the last year, we had, and I talked about it, and it scared me. Both these events scared me. Okay, I'm not going to say I'm human like everybody else. Like I want things to work, but you can't even see it now because of the big green dildo bars. These are weekly bars. But if we go back and we look at this point, if you were following Monero, there was a 51% attack done by another exchange that I don't know what happened. I don't know the truth of it. There's rumors that they rented processing power, but it definitely exposed a major weakness in Monero in that it wouldn't take much processing power to threaten the network. That bothered me a little bit. And that also brought the price down a lot. And, it's now in hindsight, you look back and you're like, well, wow, that FUD, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt was an awesome buy opportunity. I did some, but I've just been in this game too long to, I guess, go full port long. I'm okay, but, you always wish your winners were bigger. And so, as things went along, now we come. I kind of speed run this, but now we're here. And just topped out at about 800. Wow. Incredible. Like I said, though, I don't like this. I liked this. I honestly did like this. I liked it when it was doing perhaps this in a nice ascending channel of adoption as internet money. But the problem is now people are going to use things less if they think they're going to be worth more tomorrow. That's the problem with Bitcoin being money. It's not money because people don't use it as money. You could use it as money, but it's just capital. We'll talk about Bitcoin just in a minute. We'll do a little price analysis of that because it did a thing today that we need to look at as well. But I do have to caution at this point, as a professional trader, I know that just like silver, just like we'll look at Litecoin here in just a second, but just like these things, they do not, sorry, I need to share the stream to a friend. They do not settle at the all-time high. Volatility is a double-edged sword. That's something I've tried to instill in the Bitcoin peeps because they just think that number go up forever. They'll never have pullbacks. They've only been around for a couple of years. So they look at the past chart and they don't feel what it felt to be in 2013 or 2021 sometimes or any other times. They don't understand that the reason you get big gains is because of volatility, and volatility necessitates movement, just movement, up or down. And so when you have upward movement, you will invariably, inevitably have downward movement. And so at some point, this is going to snap back. Now, where it settles, I think I could be pretty, if we just look back in history and we say that it settles at, even a full almost retracement, if it's settled back around to the 300, 400 range, fine with that. My bull thesis was not to have a 4x, a 5x move, whatever it is, or whatever it ends up to. I mean, right now, if you had to ask me, where's it 1,000? That's the next psychological level that it's hunting. We'll see what macro conditions going on right now have. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions about what's going on right now with tariffs, with Jerome Powell getting indicted. None of that stuff really matters. The only thing that matters is price, because people come in after the fact and come up with justifications for the price. But I would have been happy with a nice 10, 20% year-over-year gain as a capital allocation in Monero, but instead we get this. And so now I got to deal with this, and I got to say, well, I'll be watching it. I'll be watching it for weakness as it comes about. Hashtag never selling. I don't know. Good thing is I don't need to. We can just ride it and see. But yeah, that is a brief history of Monero as far as I've been following and trying. God, I've tried so hard over the last few years to get my friends to own some Monero. I will like sit them down and look them in the eye, and I'm like, own Monero, bro. I'm like, do you not? Do you? We've been friends for a decade or more. Like we've been in cryptocurrency together for just as long. Please, I've had to repay them, like debts. I've had to give them. I've had to give it away in the last 2-3 years, just to make sure that my friends had some for this. That is how confident I was, and well, they're doing okay now. But I wish they would have listened more. But like I said, this stream's not just going to be about Monero, because I got to look for the next thing. I got to be a professional. I got to acknowledge that this is a unique event, just like anything else. I'm not going to sit here and make any cases about how this is going to 10,000. I'm not going to make any cases about how this is a new paradigm. I know better than that. So I'm going to talk about what I think is going to happen across the crypto market broadly, and then we'll later maybe get into seeing what the stock market is doing. I'll just kind of work backwards from there. One thing I find interesting is the inversion of what you would normally see, which is stocks and crypto being tied together. Now, I have an explanation for this, but there is a little bit of an inversion here. Stock market, ES, S&P 500, NASDAQ, down on the day. But really what that's coming from, of course, is the dominant players, the Teslas, the NVIDIAs, probably Meta. Yeah, like I think what's happening now in the tech stocks, which make up about tech stocks, by the way, they make up 35% of the S&P 500, which is by comparison, real estate. Let's see, what was I was looking at this yesterday. Let me just ask, what are the percentage make allocations by sector of the S&P 500? 35% is the largest, by far the largest. Yeah, so that is, yeah, it goes all the way down, I think 2% on some things. Yeah, so like for instance, energy is only 2.8%, real estate is less than 2, materials, and so it's so tech heavy. And so of course tech is starting to have a little bit of a sell-off, like Palantir, have a little bit of that, NVIDIA have a little bit of that, Tesla, of course. So these are all kind of setting up bearish. And I'm not big on shorting these things because of what they do, but that's why the market is starting to going down today. Most of the other things on my list are up, and so but it is interesting to see that this is you would call it a secular bull move in crypto that's independent of tech. That's interesting because there's often times where tech and crypto are directly correlated, and this is not one of them, at least not today. Now, let's touch on these. Let's touch on Bitcoin while I'm here. By the way, if you guys have questions, you want to talk or anything, or you have symbols to look at, most certainly put them in the chat. That's why one of the reasons I do these live streams is for idea generation, selfishly for me, but also for everyone to benefit from. And we find a lot of good opportunities here. Mostly I talk about stocks, but the only thing I talk about crypto related really is Bitcoin, because you have to. And for the last 2 or 3 years, Monero is the only thing I thought was worth anything, really. I actually don't think Bitcoin's really doing too well, or really a great risk reward at this point, even still. But we'll talk about that. So today, one of the techniques that I like to look at is the volume profile, and we can look at the current era of price going, back to the last bull move back in about October. And what this little histogram does is it shows us price and volume, like where the most trading happened. And most of that trading of the last several months, since October, happened, of course, back in that little consolidation period. At the end of that first move up, that new all-time high, and then of course what you had in both cases, in the case of December, and also in the case of earlier, or excuse me, this is December 24. Sorry, we're in ancient history now. Now, back in August to October, you had a false breakout. Talk about this a lot. Whenever you have a breakout, whenever you have a bull trend, what do you want? You want, in order for that thing to continue, you want bars that look like this. Big green dildos that punch up into price discovery. You know that word that the Bitcoin people use? Because that thing they dream of, Monero's in price discovery. And let's see, go back to old Bitcoin. So right now, but that triggered the end of it. And of course, I'm going to be looking for that with Monero. I'm not going to try to call the top now, just like I'm not trying to call the top on silver. I know better than that. You don't try to call the top on big yeets, price yeets. That's what I call them. But when things are in a consolidation, more or less, with like Bitcoin, this is where I find interesting things to play with. And of course, the main level now, essentially, Bitcoin's reverted to its volume profile point of control. It's kind of a reversion to the mean after this last dump that I had. And so this week is going to be important to see where it closes. Is it going to close to capture, recapture, or is it just going to continue to band around this 96,352 level? We'll see. On the other upside for resistances, the very obvious and simple 50% retracement, which I use for everything else, is at about 103K4, 103.5, we'll call it. Where Bitcoin gets bullish is always going to be, for me, determined by the Ichimoku trend. And that's going to be when, and it already is poking its head out of the cloud. Now, this trend indicator, by the way, is incredibly useful. If you go back all the way to 2011, and you basically, if you were to buy when it comes out of the cloud with momentum and then get out, if you didn't care about, worrying about the paperwork of that, whenever price and momentum get out, you would have outperformed just buying and holding over the last 14 years. But these events happen infrequently, but they're very powerful signals for this. And of course, you do get chopped up like any trending indicator in consolidations. But like I said, over the long run, the reason this works to follow this as a technique is it gets you out most of the time in bear moves, and then you can just get back in when it crosses over to the other side. But the reason it really outperforms is because it gets you out, or it has gotten you out in the bear cycles, which I've been told on good authority can't ever happen again because reasons. Even though we've already passed that time that historically to the month was the average length of Bitcoin bull cycles, and then we now live in either a pullback or the beginning of a new bear cycle. I've been told those can't happen anymore. I've been told that. I'm not sure I believe it yet. We'll see. I'm a big we'll see Chad. People say this is going to happen for this reason. I'm like, we'll see. Price has poked its head above the cloud. Now you have to get momentum. And at that point, it gets bullish. And so really what you want to see is in the next couple of weeks, or actually, we're getting close. In the next week or so, if it can get up and to the right, up into the early 100s, then you have a trending bullish daily. It's good. And to be fair to those that wish for all their financial dreams to come true just based on buying a single thing of internet money and doing nothing with it except memeing and trying to get other people to believe what they believe, the weekly is still bullish, still contained, still within the trend. Of course, that would change if price were to get down to this side. And so you basically have one or two things happening right now. I'll walk you through the different scenarios, what is probably going to happen. Again, we'll see. Anything can happen. But I think you're going to see this pump right here mature. The next resistance is going to be 103. And we'll see what happens there. That will, depending on time, get this thing bullish. And you may have a trending bullish. And in that case, switching back to the weekly, you will have another retest at an all-time high. Then you'll need to see if it actually captures it. What does capturing it mean? Big green dildo bar. If you get a big green dildo bar, then you're good to go. Then you get to, get up to the 150, you get up to all those numbers, that people start throwing around. It's not going to get to 1 million. Why is it not going to get to 1 million? We'll save that for a Friday live stream. Power law. Look up the logarithmic progression of Bitcoin price and power law. It's pretty clear. Once you see it, you'll understand. Or we'll look at it here in a second if you want to see it. The other side is if it holds resistances, if it fails it, this has given, this down move and this consolidation of several weeks has given Bitcoin time to set up the bearish trend on the weekly. And that's lights out. That is absolute confirmation that we are in the bear cycle. So we're still in that moment of uncertainty. What's going to happen? Are they going to get to win? Are they going to win? Is it going to become the thing? Is Saylor going to become the most powerful, richest man in the world? I hope not. I mean, I don't think they want that either. I mean, really, really and truly, like, he's become sort of the Bitcoin Jesus. And like, why are you putting your money into something that has a single point of failure? Like, I've asked this question: what happens if Saylor died tomorrow? I mean, there would be a meaningful reaction in Bitcoin. MicroStrategy would absolutely go to zero because they lost what they are. And now you don't have this champion, this big bull, because all the other Bitcoin treasury companies with their accretive dilution tactics are either going bankrupt or they've lost 99% of their value. So the copycats are done on this last thing with MicroStrategy. So you're not going to have that kind of inflow anymore. And you've rested this entire project, this entire thing that's been going on for 14 years on a single point of failure, a single human person. I hope that the CEO of Monero anything doesn't happen to him. That would be bad for me, wouldn't it? All right. The other thing I want to talk about in cryptocurrency, I know I'm blaspheming. I'm blaspheming the one true coin. I mean, think about it. I mean, it is, dude, it's entirely religious, isn't it? You have an immaculate conception by an anonymous figure, and then it matures a little bit, and then like every religion, it morphs. You get new tenets of faith. Another prophet comes along and kind of moves the religion in a different direction, arguably a more modern direction for the times. So this week, let's first look at two charts real quick. So let's look at silver. Everybody talking about silver, but let's look at it historically. Again, like Monero, when you see a big yeet like this, you need to look and see, well, what does this mean? Like what historically has happened? We got to go all the way to a quarterly chart and we can see, oh, this is the third time. It's also following a sort of logarithmic power law distribution like Bitcoin. I don't trade with logarithms, but they can sometimes be helpful. Look at long pattern things. That doesn't really change anything for that when it's going up. But the thing that you can take away from this is a few things. Number one, the price of this thing, silver, likes to sit around for years at a time testing people's resolve. I have so many good friends that have been waiting so long for this moment. The good thing is I know that they're not going to sell because they've got, hundreds or thousands of pounds of silver sitting in their basement that they're not going to go load that up and try to sell it. Maybe they will, but you got a lot of hodling just because it's a rock, So that's working in their favor. Like I said today to people, like you can be right for the wrong reason. Just like I say with Bitcoin, people got into it for internet money. It's clearly not that. Monero's taken over. You have PayPal, you have Venmo. It's not money. People got into it thinking it's a deflationary, asset currency. Well, that would be really bad for economies because they would seize up because no one would use it, just like they're not using it now. And making it into corporate Ponzi's is a horrible idea. It's a scam. But if people believe these things are good and hold for these reasons and number goes up, doesn't matter, does it? You were right, even if it was for the wrong reasons. As long as you buy and hold assets. By the way, guys, that's the best. That's the only thing I can really tell people right now. I mean, look, we all agree Fed's printing a bunch of money. I'm not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it. The prices of things are going to go up. Buy things that people in the future are going to want to buy from you later at a higher price. It's just that simple. It's not that simple, but it is just that simple. Anyway, point being, price likes to hang out and do nothing for a very long time. And then, apropos of nothing, it yeets. And then it doesn't stay yeeted. Like I said, volatility is a double-edged sword. I don't call the top, but I know one thing is not going to happen. It is not going to stop here and then do this. It's just not. Nothing does that. Nothing that moves like this does that. Now you may come down here and you may do that, or you may come down here and you may do that, but you don't get to keep the all-time high with something that went this quickly, this fast. You just don't. I say that and acknowledge that about Monero because just the same thing, it has a similar looking pattern. And there's probably other things that you can see to this too, but this is just one of those pattern recognition moments where you have to say like, okay, I get it. We're going to be smart about it. So now that it's gone and we can't be stupid and try to jump in because we're just going to lose, at least that's what I've steeled myself to know. We look at what's next, or what could be next. I made a post about this earlier, but what about this? Litecoin. Monero. Silver. Litecoin. I just have this weird habit, this weird proclivity where I like to see something doing this, and that's the kind of stuff I buy. That's why I said, don't buy Monero because I can't buy this. My fingers won't actually press the button. They can't. It's like I've tried. It's like I can't. I can't buy something that's already in the middle of a parabolic. It may go up more. I may be like, oh, I should have, but no, I can't do it. But what I do like to do is try to find 2023 looking Monero or 2024 looking silver in the next thing. And I can get behind Litecoin because of a few things. Number one, besides the pattern. Number two, it also has privacy optionally using Mimblewimble. They have put that into it as a currency. It satisfies my seeking of what I think cryptocurrency was intended to be, which is private, anonymous, untraceable internet money. It's there. It has that capability. It also has a long established track record. It's not a fly-by-night shitcoin. And finally, it's ubiquitously listed on every single exchange. Unlike Monero, it's arguably better than Monero. I argue that the delistings have actually been a feature rather than a bug, as evidenced by, Monero. But now, this could be the potential thing. Look, we'll see. I wish I could just sit here and tell you and bull post and tell you guys like this is going to happen. But I didn't do that with Monero either because we don't know. But what I do know is that in all these terms, this has the best risk reward out there right now. If this meme of private internet money is to continue, because I mean, I don't even want to talk about it because I think it's stupid. One of the most obvious pump and then subsequent dumps, of recent times has been Zcash, but it kind of went along with the privacy narrative, but it was also paid shilled by tons of people. It's garbage. Highly centralized. 70% of the mining is controlled by the issuing authority. They've sued people for running websites that are trying to promote their coin. It's just dumb. Monero fixes all those things. Totally decentralized. You can't do ASIC mining. You can't industrially mine it. Much better community. Much better. Oh my God. Like the community of Monero, so much better. It's a lot more fun. It's just, they're not around there like, circle themselves about, how everyone else is going to be poor and they're going to be the next elite. It's just better. Like it's just Bitcoin people, with the exception of my one good friend, are pricks. Generally, they're God, they're so egotistical. And let's see. And so that's the thesis going into this year. I'm looking for new opportunities, and so that's going to be the one that I'm watching. We shall see. All right. Well, that's what I want to talk about today. Let's check chat and see what's going on here. So, what's up, Amer? Copper? That's it. I don't know. I don't know about copper. Silver-backed crypto coin is OP? Maybe. All right. Let's see. We looked at Litecoin, obviously, Hoist. That's what you wanted, first of all. UHE and stuff. Tell you what, Hoist. I want to keep this to crypto. We'll look at your we'll look at them real quick at the end, but let me read what Greatest Audiobook said. Check out Rail. Add some privacy for Ethereum and don't. Vitalik owns it. Not a replacement for XMR, but as a complementary use case. I was talking on Discord last night. Yeah, I mean, I think that this privacy use case is a meme. I mean, there was the whole, like the meme stocks of, the most shorted stocks, pot stocks, DeFi. I mean, the market goes through memes, and like right now, I think that we're in a privacy meme. And you know what? This too shall pass. And I realize that this, like I said, this is a little bit of a little flex stream because damn it, I seriously tried to get people to understand what I saw. Now I have to find something else to tell people. Now I have to give my friends that I tried to give this idea to their third chance for life-changing money. So I'll try. I'm going to continue trying. But yeah, looks okay. No, it doesn't. I see a little. Let me tell you something. I was talking last night on Discord. By the way, hop in. Come talk to me about a crypto portfolio and what I want in it. And essentially, it would be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero. Now Litecoin, but only if Litecoin does what I want it to do. But those three are the only three. And here's the key thing: thinking in terms of portfolio, capital preservation. Like these are all cryptocurrency is volatile as hell, but these three that I would pick are never going to zero. Actually, people would have argued that Monero would have gone to zero if the 51% attack worked. But also, Ethereum could go to zero if, the central administration of it, just like Ethereum Classic. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's Ethereum and there's Ethereum Classic because someone found a hack. I think they stole a bunch of coins and they hard forked it. And so they could always, for some reason in the future, do a hard fork of Ethereum. Anyway, too much of a we'll see, Chad. Those three are the ones that I see have the most use, whatever they may be, and long track record. And I don't think they're going to go to zero. Now, they could go down a lot, but not to zero. And I know for sure, even though I don't think now is a good price to buy it, actually, I don't think it's a good price, but Bitcoin is going to be around for a very, very long time. Because, if only for one reason, its proponents. The best comparison I heard was comparing them to the Juggalos. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Juggalos are the really hardcore fans of a band called Insane Clown Posse, a rap group band, Insane Clown Posse. And the thing that really pushes them together or makes them analogous is that they are a very insular, committed fan base that are absolutely immune from outside criticism. You will never convince them that they are wrong, and they're going to absolutely be faithful to their thing. They will never sell. They will never go away. They will always be there, and you can't change their mind. There's value in that. There is. And so I feel pretty confident in the fact that Bitcoin will never go to zero. But let's bring it up. The thing that colors my thinking about the future of Bitcoin as far as price is, I think it's made all the millionaires it's going to make. I mean, I'll take that back. If you steadily invest as a typical middle class person would in anything, just like you would the S&P 500, then you will eventually, just like you would in stocks, become a millionaire. Even though they would argue that $1 million is not the most. But if you just look at the progression on a logarithmic scale, and then I had another chart with a, and you can do a search on Twitter for Bitcoin power law scale, and you can see very clearly that in terms of both adoption metrics, such as addresses and creations and stuff like that, and mostly just the price, that the highs are going higher, but at a decreasing rate. Now, they argue that will be broken because reasons. But I think the best guess now is to say that it's probably in a bear cycle. The high for this cycle's in, and thus that continues the trend of decreasing highs over time. And so when will Bitcoin be $1 million? If we just kind of lean this out along the tangent line of our thing, I think it's pretty fair to say that we'll be able to get to $1 million, perhaps somewhere mid-century. I think we'll probably be at about 200 on the next bull cycle, perhaps at the end of the decade. Now, that's still a good movement. That's still a 2x movement, more than 100% movement. But I think you can get that in other places, like stocks of companies that actually produce goods and services. In other words, create wealth rather than just meme and try to get people to buy it to drive the number up and absorb wealth, which is the current use case of Bitcoin. So I thought you didn't like Ethereum. I don't. But if I was going to build a crypto portfolio, I can't just have two things, can I? Now, I'm not saying again that I think Ethereum is actually is it a buy right now? It's better than it was. What colors that is the fact that really looking at Ethereum versus Solana, because at first I thought, and I was actually getting bullish about Solana. I never took a position in it because it never got quite right for me. But I looked at smart contracts as a thing. I mean, just like Bitcoin over the years, I've always said it's a solution to the problem that no one really knows. Like you know that it's a thing. You know that it's a wonderful tool. It's a great technology. You're just not quite sure what problem it's fixing. Smart contracts are really cool technology. They're very useful. DeFi is definitely a thing. In fact, I highly recommend using distributed finance, non-centralized exchanges, rather than centralized exchanges. But one of the platform that I don't trade on any decentralized exchanges. Like I said, I don't have any reason to trade much of off cryptocurrencies right now. I'm not particularly interested. I'm mainly focused on stocks now. So, but if I were, it would be the GMX exchange. And then when I checked, because a friend of mine told me to do that, and when I checked, it was on the Ethereum chain. In other words, it was created by Ethereum. And so a lot of the cool stuff is still being made on Ethereum now. And so I can't deny that. It has that advantage. It has a lot of institutional buy-in too. I mean, that's yay. But Solana, it's still a competitor. There's a lot of meme coins, but really, Solana. The reason I didn't go really into it was because I recognize a lot of people were using it, but it's just used for meme coins and grifts and things like that. It's definitely, I think it's cheaper than Ethereum, maybe faster. But Ethereum, just like Bitcoin, has a first mover advantage. And so if I were to construct a portfolio, it would just be those three, perhaps four, using Litecoin now. And then you would have to work really hard to convince me to get into anything else. I am pretty obstinate about crypto, other random cryptos. And I can guarantee you, if you bring me a crypto that I have to start counting the number of zeros to get to the number, I'm going to say no. Screw that. I'm not good at math. Yeah. What's overly complicated, Edge? What do you think's overly complicated, Edge? What are you saying was overly complicated? Me? Explanations? I'm happy to dig into. I love talking about this stuff. What else is going on? NVIDIA, you see the little setup right here that I did because technically speaking, I have a little indicator I do which shows me false breakouts. It's really just price slant going up and then slamming back down in the same bar or second bar. And it does seem that this short triggered on 190 on NVIDIA. Same thing happened on Palantir, actually. A little more bullish. Tesla did a false breakout, which is really bothering me because I love my Tesla, but just because I like the product doesn't mean that the stock is going to perform. So, I don't know what to do there. This year I've decided to retard max, by the way. I'm going to think less and act more. So, I'm not going to overthink things. I'm just going to follow my rules, follow my setups. That's my plan for this year. All right. I'll look at your symbols real quick. UHC, and then we're going to close out because I actually think I might need to get back to that call real quick. Okay. UHC. I don't know what UHC is. HIMS. I like where you're at. I like where you're at looking for something that's down. In case you didn't see my last live stream, let me bring this up. Two things I want to leave you with. Hang on, let me find it. So, I'm talking online to people, and they're all everybody's a little nervous. Tariffs, geopolitical instability. J Powell, our beloved meme-worthy J Powell, is going to be indicted. Let me see if I can find this. Or I can just repeat it to you and you can go do the research yourself. Here we go. So this struck with me because I'm big on statistics. When you buy the S&P 500 at a 23 times price to earnings ratio, which I don't really follow, your 10-year annualized return has always, not 90% of the time, always fallen between +2 and -2%. Essentially zero. And right now, and probably when this podcast came out was a few weeks ago, it's probably even more, is at 25 PE. So statistically speaking, if you're looking at the almanac of the stocks, if you buy the market now, in 10 years, you will have made nothing. Now, market go down, market go up, but at the end of those 10 years, it will be nothing. So we don't know what that'll look like. But that stuck with me coming into this year, thinking, okay, what do I want to do? And so I'm being very, very cautious. And that applies to, what you're showing me about, stocks and stuff like that. I'm hanging on to the stocks that I have. I'm hodling. But I'm being very, very picky. And with the exception of a few trades I've taken with friends because they've gone into it with the appropriate amount of risk for that, I have I've made no big positions in stocks yet. I'm waiting to see. Wait and see approach. And actually, talking about spikes and stock market on the 1 hour, set up yesterday a spike, new all-time high that it didn't keep. Remember what I said about making new all-time highs? You need a big green dildo bar. Now, of course, this is just intraday price action. Still pretty bullish. I don't call this a false breakout. A little pullback today. It's fine. Pulls back to the Tinkerson. No big deal. But I'm being very cautious. We're still in a bull market, though. Stocks only go up. And like I said, people are a little skeptical now. For whatever reason. But my favorite quotes that every time I think, oh no, maybe I should sell, maybe I should get out, everyone's talking about this or that. I think about this. Bull markets are born on pessimism. In other words, everything's going wrong and the price is just going to keep going lower. Grow on skepticism. Ding, ding, ding. Mature on optimism and die in euphoria. And I think we're still in skeptical territory, at least for stocks. Skeptical on crypto too. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thanks for hanging out with me for this midweek stream. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. I think we'll do it again if Jen cracks the whip to me. All right, guys. Have a good week. Oh, the reason I want to do these streams in the midweek is because when I normally do these on Fridays, and I will do a Friday stream too at 4 p.m. We'll talk more about this and other things. But it's because if we find opportunities in Wednesday streams, we can take advantage of them on Thursday. So, have a good week.